Hello, and welcome back to my channel. It's been a hot minute since I filmed. So here we are. Today we're doing a September wrap-up and talking about all the books I read in September. And maybe one that was in August, but like the end of August, and I can't remember. Anyway, it's a good book. I wanted to talk about it. Let me get my stack of books. I read a lot. So let's start with the book that I don't know if it was September or August. This one is The Wanderers by Meg Howry. This book was super awesome. I loved it. I kind of want to read it again so I can enjoy it some more. I don't know if I would really call it sci-fi, but it's set, I think, it's set kind of in the future when we're talking about seriously sending humans to Mars, and it's about like a NASA basically like a training exercise for the 3 different astronauts that they're considering sending to Mars. And so the story follows the 3 different astronauts during this, like, is it 18 months of like they're simulating their travel to Mars, like in a simulation spaceship. And then it follows, for the 3 astronauts, it also follows one of their like closest family members. Anyway, it was super good, and I also really liked the ending. Was kind of ambiguous. I don't want to give too much away, but really loved this book if you're into like space and stuff like that. Good read. And then I read The Perfect Horse by Elizabeth Letts. This is a non-fiction book about, it's like during World War II, how like not only were the Nazis trying to perfect the human race, they were also trying to create like the perfect horse. So they stole all these horses from different farms, and like back in those days there would be like government horse breeding programs, so they stole horses from those as well. And so this is about the people who were trying to save these horses, like different, like the American Army, and then the citizens of like Czechoslovakia and other countries that had their like prized animals stolen. I like Elizabeth Letts. She also wrote The $80 Champion, which is a book I really enjoyed. I've read that a couple of times. So this was a good read. Enjoyed that. After those books, we start to get into YA territory. Didn't enjoy any of them. So the first YA book I read in September was Queens of Geek by Jen Wilde. And I want to like this book. Like, it wasn't bad. I don't want to say that this book was bad. It had really great representation of like a bunch of different minorities, like LGBT, different like POC characters. So that was good. And like mental illness was featured. I mean, and those things were all good, but it also kind of came across as like, to me, there were parts of it that it felt like an adult was writing this book and trying to sound like a high school girl. Like, one of the characters, Taylor, has anxiety, and at one point Taylor is explaining to like her best friend what anxiety feels like, and they're just like, the point is like Queens of Geek, like they're nerdy, they're geeky, they're into like pop culture things, but she was explaining how her anxiety felt to her best friend, and she's like, you know how in Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, when he's going across the floor and he's trying to spell out the word, but he doesn't know like when the letters are going to fall through, that's what it feels like every day for me. And her best friend is like, oh my god, I had no idea that that's what it was like. And I was like, why did that have to be your conversation on anxiety? Like, why did you have to reference Indiana Jones for that? And what else was there? I feel like there was something. Oh, so also the same character, Taylor, has a Tumblr. And so there'll be like little chapters in the book. Hold on, there's one at the end where it's like her Tumblr post. And okay, I hope this is in focus. If anyone posted like this on Tumblr, I would unfollow them. That's insane. Do you see all these spaces? Anyway. So, I mean, okay, again, not a bad book. I read it like in one sitting. It's short. Things were moving fast enough. It said only over a couple of days. But not a great book. I've heard like a lot of people like rave, like they love it. And I was like, it was okay. I would have been fine if I never read this book. It didn't do much for me. The next YA book that I read was Caraval. That's how we're going to say it. Again, a book that a lot of people had raved about, that it was so good. And like right off the bat, I could kind of tell it wasn't going to be great. But again, like Queens of Geek, the action kept going. It's set again like over like a week. So I was able to stay interested enough to finish it pretty quickly. Like it's like a couple of hours for me to read this. But not great. When I got to the end, I can't even remember what it was. It was some kind of twist at the end. I do remember I finished it and I was like, oh, I didn't love it, but that there's going to be a sequel. And I was like, I'd pick up the sequel, but now I can't even remember what the twist is. So I'm probably not going to be picking up a sequel for this. But not a super huge fan of the characters. The plot was also kind of weird. I had the same problem with the next book that I'm going to be talking about. I felt so like old reading these because they were trying to like world build and talk about this like fantasy realm, whatever. And I could not pick up on it. Like I know when I was young, like an actual child reading like YA fantasy, I loved like world building and like their geography and like their names for things and stuff, but now I'm like totally not into it. I was like, I just don't want to try to figure out the politics of a new kingdom. I don't want to figure out your geography and like, I don't know. So, and like the writing also was just not that impressive to me. So like, again, this was okay. I'm not mad that I read it. I am kind of glad that I got this one on bargain price, though, for like $5, because otherwise I think I'd be kind of upset. So that's that. The last YA book that I read in September, as I was reading it, I was thinking, I don't know how much YA I can possibly do at this point, was The Bone Witch by Rin Chupico. I'm so sorry about that last name. This book was so boring. I could barely finish it. I literally fell asleep when I was reading it. I finished it, so it wasn't as bad as like A Discovery of Witches or something. But, oh my god, it was so boring. Even its world, I don't want to say the world building was worse than Caraval. There was more world building, and there was like 8 different kingdoms, and I could kind of tell that like each kingdom was supposed to be like modeled after a geographical area in our world. Like there was one country that was described as like, oh, it's like the South, it's like the desert, and the women wear veils. And I was like, okay, that's like their version of the Middle East or something. Oh my god. Okay, also, the big thing that I didn't understand about this book, its whole like plot and storyline is based around this girl. Like there's witches in this world, and the main character, okay, I think the main character's name is T, because that's how it's spelled. But then at one point in the book, there's a conversation where someone is just meeting her and they spell out the name phonetically and they say it Tia. So is her name Tia or is it tea? It's spelled like the drink. Whatever. But like the whole premise is that there's witches in this world and there's different kinds of witches. Fine. She's a necromancer, a bone witch. I probably wouldn't have picked it up. I was really stupid. I didn't even read the back of this book before I bought it. And then I came home and saw that it's like, oh, she's a necromancer. And I was like, this is going to be bad. I was right. So Tia, whatever. So she's a necromancer. And she goes off, like, there's, like, different levels of witches, I think. I don't know. I was confused. She had sisters that were witches, but it was like they were, like, lower level witches, so they got to stay home with their family. But because T is more powerful or whatever, she had to go off to this city or country with, like, another necromancer. And then they were what she started to train to be what they're called Asha. So the country that she went to was like this fantasy world's version of Japan, and she was basically a geisha. I'm an uncultured swine. I'm so sorry. But it was like they wore like the dress, like the clothing that they described them wearing was like traditional Japanese style clothing, and it was kind of like memoirs of a geisha. It was kind of reminded me of that book where she's like, I don't even know how to describe it. She's like, it's not even training to be a witch, which is what I thought was going to happen, because she goes off to this place and they're talking about her training to be this Asha, which I was like, okay, Asha is just their word for witch. It was so weird. She would go to train to fight, and I was like, okay, they're like warriors, but then she would also go train in like flower arranging and then they also like had parties that they went to at night. These like witches who are trained as warriors would go to parties to entertain men by singing and dancing and playing instruments. That doesn't make any sense. Like, are they here to entertain men, or are they here to protect the kingdom? Honestly, if they're here to entertain men, I'm not interested. This is a trilogy. Like Caraval, it ended with kind of a twist. It was like a huge twist. Okay. It ended with a twist, and I'm all for twist endings. I have like some books that have twist endings to talk about next. But this one was so stupid. Like, a twist ending is good if it's something that, like, when it's revealed, you're like, oh my god, that does make sense. And it's something if, like, you went back and read the book again, you'd be like, oh, I can see that. I can see that the clues were there for the twist. Like, you weren't going to pick them up until the end when it's, like, all revealed. That's what makes a good twist. This twist ending was stupid. There was no way you could have seen it coming. When it was revealed, I wasn't like, oh my god, mind blown. I was like, this is completely out of left field, because the twist comes in literally this close to the end of the book is the twist. And this whole part was like goofing around. Nothing was happening. T was going to class. I was so bored. And then there's a twist right here that answers, like, no questions. It just raised more questions, and not in a good way. And then at the very end, like the last page, there's another twist, which again was a twist you couldn't see coming. I didn't realize how much I hated this until I started talking about it. This book was literally awful. It's in a trilogy. On a happier note, I read, what is the trilogy called? The Southern Reach trilogy by Jeff Vandermeer. The first book is Annihilation, which I read like earlier in August. And that was really good. Ended with a good, like, not a twist, like a cliffhanger. So you wanted to read the next books. And so these are the next two books, the last two books in the trilogy. Authority and Acceptance. First of all, these books are freaking beautiful. I love them. The covers are so pretty. The Annihilation one is like the same style. And like the end pages, like the inside of the cover, so pretty. Love it. Anyway, Honestly, these books I'm not sure if I'm a fan of or not. Like they weren't like they're not bad. If you like sci-fi, would 100% pick these up. You'll enjoy it. Um, but not my favorite books. I did really like the characters. I liked how he wrote. I just felt like there were times it got too like his science fiction, like whatever, like the science of it, I guess, got kind of too vague. And when you finish the trilogy, not all your questions are answered. And I'm not mad about it, but I would like to have all my questions answered. Like, I kind of wanted to get to the end. Because, like, as you're reading the trilogy, everything just builds and builds and builds. And you get some questions answered, but you also, like, get more questions. So I kind of wanted to have more closure at the end of the trilogy to be like, this is 100% the answer for everything. But it was kind of like a vague answer for everything. I mean, they were good. I enjoyed them. But I wanted more answers. And finally, the last book that I read was The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. This book actually inspired me to get a couple of other... I went to the bookstore and picked up a couple other thrillers because I had never read a thriller before, and I had always thought that's not going to be something that I'm into. This book was so good. I mean, yeah, like 100% not something that I've ever read before, but I really enjoyed it. It kept me super engaged until the end. It wasn't scary, but it was like intriguing. And then this is a book that had a twist at the end that was like blew me out of the water. Like up to that point, I had been like, this book is okay. Like I'm enjoying it, but I'm not a huge fan. And then there was a twist at the end that explained everything. And I was like, oh, love. This is a super fun book. Even if you don't think you're going to like a thriller, I really enjoyed it. It was the tension building and like the climax and like the resolution of everything. A good book. So those are all the books I read in September. So yeah, thanks for watching. Maybe one day I'll post a video that's not rant content, but it might just be boring and I may never post a 100% happy video. That's just the kind of person I am. Thanks for watching. Bye!